I welcome you all to the module 12 of this course. So, this is the first lecture of module 12. So, the module 12 is basically about specific applications of personality psychology. So, we have discussed the different dimensions, different aspects of personality psychology, different theories and so on. In this last module, so this is the last module, and in this module we will be looking at how personality psychology has specific application in the specific domains of life. So, in today's lecture we will be talking about how personality is connected to physical health, how personality dimensions can contribute to or influence our physical health. So, this is lecture number 28 and first lecture of this module. So, just to give you brief recap of the last lecture. So, the last lecture was part of module number 11, which was about positive personality traits. So, in that last lecture we talked about the concept of kindness as a positive personality trait. We discussed the meaning of kindness and what are the different aspects to kindness. We also discussed evolutionary mechanisms of kindness, that how evolution also promotes certain kindness behavior because it is necessary for survival of species. We also discussed the relationship between kindness and happiness, why these are connected to each other, and we discussed some of the possible reasons behind why kindness promotes happiness. And at the end we discussed practicing kindness, what are the some aspects to it. So, in today's lecture we will be talking about how personality can be linked to physical illnesses. So, mostly we will be focusing on physical health part here. Next lecture we will be talking about mental health and so on. So, we will be talking about some of the personality traits related to healthy behaviors and unhealthy behaviors. We will be focusing on one specific personality trait of big 5 factor called conscientiousness and how it connects to health. We will be talking about type A and type B personality traits and how it is related to cardiovascular diseases. So, these are some of the things that we will be talking about in today's lecture. So, let us start. So, when we talk about personality is related to illness, when we talk about illness here in this lecture we are focusing on physical illnesses. So, some of the possible relationships or connection between personality and illness are described by some of the researchers like Schultz and Rittenhouse and others. They proposed some of the 4 possible mechanisms by which personality can be connected to illnesses. Let us see what are these 4 possible mechanisms. So, number 1 is that personality can be a causal factor in illness. Personality can be a main cause behind physical illnesses in certain cases. For example, certain personality traits might directly affect physiological processes leading to increased susceptibility to certain illnesses. Now, a lot of the psychological personality trait has a very strong biological component to it. So, some traits can because of certain traits one can experience a lot of stress in their life, lot of anxiety in their life, like neuroticism. So, this trait is very directly connected to the physiological reaction of the body, and because of certain traits you are more likely to experience things like anger, things like more stress in your life, and because of this physiological impact of stress and anger it may lead to, because if you are a personality trait you are more likely to experience it again and again in your day to day functioning, which may lead to certain disease actually. For example, high level of hostility and anger of certain personality trait associated with type A people, which we will be talking about in detail in this lecture, has been found to be linked to cardiovascular disease. It has been found that people with type A characteristics, which is like high level of hostility and anger is one of the important aspect to it. Because of this trait they are more likely to experience heart diseases. So, like this a certain personality trait can be directly cause certain diseases, like in this case type A personality trait can lead to cardiovascular diseases. So, this could be one of the relationship or mechanisms. Second is there can be a correlational link between personality and illnesses. Certain research shows that there can be correlational link, means it is not the causal factors, but they are correlated to each other positively. For example, so in this case there may be correlational link between personality and health or illnesses. So, this suggests that some same biological processes might underlie both personality traits and illness outcome. So, basically it is saying sometimes the same biological reason is causing the disease also and the same reason is causing the personality trait also. So, the causal reason behind the personality and the illnesses is the same factor. For example, Matthews provided an example in this case. In certain cases of coronary heart disease, an individual might have a genetic predisposition to develop heart disease, and this same genetic factor could also predispose them to be a hostile person. So, what they are saying, in certain cases the same gene is causing both heart disease. This gene is causing people to be more vulnerable for heart disease. No gene directly causes any disease, they make you more prone. So, you are more likely to develop, and the same gene is causing certain expression of personality like hostility and anger. So, both anger or trait of personality and the disease like heart disease are actually connected to the same underlying factor. So, that is called correlational connection between personality and illnesses. So, in this scenario, so there is a positive correlation or association between high level of hostility and cardiac disease, but the relationship is not causal because cause is something else. Instead, both the illness and the personality trait of hostility are thought to be caused by some underlying genetic factor. Now, both are correlated because one is not causing the other, but both are caused by some third factor, that is some genetic predisposition. So, in that sense also sometimes personality can be correlated with certain illnesses. The third reason is there is an indirect influence of personality on illness through behaviors. That personality and illness is not directly, personality may not cause the illnesses, but because of certain personality trait people are more likely to engage in certain behaviors, and those behaviors can increase certain illnesses. For example, certain personality traits may lead individuals to engage in specific behaviors that influence their health and increase the risk of illnesses. For example, an individual with high need for novelty and excitement, a trait psychology of sensation seeking. So, certain personality trait related to sensation seeking, these are the people who are high on sensation seeking, is a trait, characteristics of some people. These people always want more novel and exciting experiences in their life, they seek more sensations in their life. Such people, they, because of their behavior, may be more likely to engage in certain behavior like illegal drug taking or let us say substance abuse and so on, compared to people who are low in sensation seeking. So, because of this trait, this person, they seek more sensations and new experiences in their life, they may are more likely to get engaged in behaviors which are harmful for their health, like taking drugs or taking substances and so on. So, sometimes certain traits can indirectly lead to certain diseases through certain behaviors, not directly causing, but indirectly through behaviors. So, that could also be another mechanisms. Fourth is sometimes it can be opposite also, that because of certain illnesses, physical illnesses, people personality also change. Illness changes their whole personality also. So, the experience of being ill can also shape individual's personality over time. Okay? So, sometimes people change also because of the illness, they also themselves change. So, chronic illness, particularly the chronic which are very long term illnesses, might lead to changes in the traits such as increased anxiety or depression as individuals adapt to their new realities. Sometimes because of these chronic diseases which are very long term, like terminal diseases like cancer and so on, can change the trait level characteristics of people, like it can increase anxiety level, depression level among individuals who are not like that earlier, but because of this disease certain changes can happen in their trait characteristics also. So, having all like chronic condition like having severe arthritis which may result in persistent pain in the body can lead to significant lifestyle and psychological changes. Individuals with chronic arthritis may go out less, feel less sociable and worry more about the future and their ability to cope with daily activities. Because of their limiting conditions of the diseases, people's characteristics can also change in order to adapt to these new realities associated with the diseases. So, some researchers also examined the effects of acute health crises such as a heart attack and chronic illnesses, and concluded that such event can actually significantly change people's personality also. So, this is sometimes conceptualized as a psychosomatic link, where physical changes in the body influence patient's mind. So, there is a mind body connection that we all know, that mind, so there is a mind body connection. Mind can influence body and the body can influence the mind. So, these are not like completely segregated entities, each can contribute to other or influence others. So, what happens in your mind can influence the body. So, when you feel anxiety, feel stress, so there is a lot of changes in the body also. So many hormones gets released in the body, and it impacts your digestive systems, your heartbeat increases and so on. So, mind, whatever you think in your mind can influence your body immediately. Sometimes certain changes in the body can influence your mind, because how you feel in the body can accordingly change your thoughts and so on. So, the mind body is a very kind of constant interactive entities, both can interact with each other all the time. So, this is what we discussed, is shown here in this diagram, these four possible mechanisms how personality can be linked to health. So, one is just to summarize here. So, personality can directly cause illness through biological activities. So, because of certain personality traits, certain changes happens in the body, like if you are high on neuroticism, you are more likely to experience stress and anxiety, which may contribute to certain diseases. So, it can directly cause illnesses. Sometimes these are correlated to each other, personality and illness, because both are connected to one biological factor, which could be some genetic factor. So, correlational link. The third mechanism we discussed, that personality can influence your illnesses through behaviors. People with certain traits, they are more likely to engage in certain behaviors. Some behavior could be health promoting, or some people are more likely to engage in health deteriorating behaviors. Like as we gave an example of sensation seeking people are more likely to get into those experimenting with drugs and substances, which can deteriorate their health also. And the last one is, sometimes illness can change your personality also, especially the chronic illnesses and so on. So, these are the four possible ways how physical health is connected to personality. These are possible mechanisms. Now, let us see kind of little bit more elaborate explanation of some of these pathways. One is how personality is linked to body physiology or bodily mechanisms. So, some of the biological ways in which personality can influence your body, one is through stress response. Certain personality traits like neuroticism can lead to heightened stress response. People who are, let us say, because of certain mental characteristics, they are more likely to experience stress in their life. Like people high in the trait of neuroticism, they are more likely to experience nervousness and stress because of the whatever they encounter in their life. So, they are more likely to experience stress in their life as compared to who is low on this trait. So, because of this high stress response, as we know, when we experience stress in the mind, it leads to many physiological changes in the body. It may lead to release of many hormones like cortisol, adrenaline and so on. These hormones, when they remain in the system for a long time, can cause many diseases, including heart diseases. It can lead to even suppression of immune system and so on. So, in that way, certain personality trait can directly cause changes in the physiology of the body and contribute to deterioration of health or lead to certain illnesses such as cardiovascular disease, weakened immune system, metabolic disorder and so on. So, in that sense, so this is one thing. Second is, obviously immune system function is also related to certain traits, as we have already discussed. People high in certain traits which leads to more stress experience in their life, stress and anxiety, and stress and anxiety releases hormones like cortisol, and this hormone can deteriorate, especially the chronic stress. If the stress remains for a long time or continuously or frequently in your life, then it can reduce or suppress your immune system, because this hormone directly reduces WBC cells in your blood, which is responsible for protecting your body. So, immune system can also go down because of certain personality trait. So, in this way they can contribute to illnesses and so on. So, this is one way that they can directly change your physiology of the body and cause physical diseases. Another thing that we discussed is that personality can cause certain tendencies or behavioral tendencies which are called health, which are related to health. These are called health behaviors. So, personality can influence your health behaviors, either promoting behaviors or health deteriorating behaviors. So, and that can indirectly lead to progression of diseases and so on. So, personality and health behavior, let us see what is the connection here in more detail. So, while some traits do not directly cause physiological processes, but increase the risk of illnesses such as narrowing of coronary arteries, the impairment of immune function. Some personality trait may not directly cause these physiological changes, but they can indirectly influence health by affecting behavioral risk factor. So, not all personality traits directly causes changes in the physiology of the body, but some personality trait could cause changes in the behavior of the person, which may lead to diseases. For example, personality traits associated with smoking, excessive drinking or risky sexual practices are indirectly linked to the health problems associated with these behaviors. So, certain traits which may promote these behaviors like smoking, excessive drinking and so on, then it will obviously these behaviors are detrimental to your health, it can cause certain diseases. Research suggests that more extroverted people who are more extroverted, who are too much of outgoing people, and neurotic individuals who are more of high stress experience people, more people who are emotionally little unstable, are more likely to be smokers, thus increases their health risk related to smoking. So, people with certain personality traits are more likely to go into things like smoking, substance abuse and so on. Additionally, sensation seeker individuals, which we talked about earlier also, are more likely to engage in risky sexual behaviors, making them more prone to contracting certain kind of diseases or venereal diseases. So, in that way, personality trait is influencing certain tendencies of behaviors which can promote some other kind of diseases. So, personality significantly influences health behaviors, impacting overall health and longevity. To what extent you are more likely to experience certain health conditions. Individuals with certain personality traits tend to greater health risk, leading their earlier mortality. They are more likely to die early because of certain risky behaviors. So, this relationship is complex, as external factor like accidents can also occur randomly. So, many other external factors also contribute to one's mortality and diseases. Some random factors could also be there, but some factors could be connected to personality traits. Personality traits can predispose people to risky behaviors, as we have seen some of these examples. For example, those who are lonely, depressed or impulsive are more likely to engage in hazardous activities such as crossing busy streets carelessly, driving late at night without seat belt, using illegal drugs and so on. So, certain behaviors which could be linked to certain traits like people who are more depressed, more lonely, more impulsive people, they are more likely to engage in careless behaviors, hazardous activities such as crossing busy streets carelessly, driving late at night without seat belts, getting into illegal drugs and so on, which has its own impact in the health and so on. So, essentially personality shapes behaviors that create healthier or more dangerous habits of an environment. So, personality trait can mold one's behavior or promotes behavior which can lead to healthy behaviors or more dangerous or negative behaviors, both can be possible. We will see some more examples also. Smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol are well known to be associated with various personality traits like rebelliousness, aggressiveness, alienation, low self esteem and impulsivity. Some of the traits, some of these traits that we discussed here are, these people are more likely to engage in smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol, like people with more aggressiveness, alienation, low self esteem, people with more impulsivity. And we know that smoking and taking too much of alcohol can cause many health problems. These behaviors often originates from personality and social issues in childhood, which can lead to substance use in adolescence. A lot of these issues can arise during childhood, and then they can continue in the later part of one's life. Consequently, these unhealthy behaviors increase the risk of health problems and premature death of such individuals. So, this is how personality traits could make people more vulnerable for diseases and early death and so on. So, in addition to being associated with behavioral risk factor for illnesses, some personality traits are linked to preventive and protective behavior or health promoting behaviors. So, we have discussed that certain traits could lead to health illness promoting behaviors, where it can make you more prone to illnesses and diseases. On the other hand, certain personality traits could be opposite to that, in the sense that they can promote preventing and protective behaviors or health promoting behaviors also. For example, personality traits of conscientiousness is a trait that we discussed in the big 5 factors model. One of the traits is conscientiousness, and it has been found to be very strongly linked to health promoting behaviors. People with strong on conscientiousness are basically, they engage in positive behaviors or health promoting behaviors. Optimism enables effective coping with stress, and extroversion is associated with efficiently seeking social support. So, people with higher optimism also found to be, they cope with the stress in a much better way. People with more extrovert quality are also, they are more efficient in seeking support from other people. So, this can also actually promote in certain promote certain behaviors which can promote health and so on. So, this trait can positively influence health outcomes. Another way in which personality can influence health through behavior is that certain personality trait can influence recovery and the risk of recurrence of illnesses. So, personality trait can also promote recovery from the illnesses and so on. So, certain dispositions or traits that make individual less likely to comply with medical treatments, such as impulsivity or low conscientiousness, are associated with lower or slower rates of recovery. So, basically people with low conscientiousness, they recover from illness also slowly, because they do not comply with the medical treatments or the kind of medicine they need to take regularly, they will not take. So, people with higher conscientiousness, they are more likely to also recover from the illnesses much faster, because they will comply with the medical treatments process and so on. Additionally, people's habitual coping styles like influence how well they respond to stress of illness and their likelihood of experiencing recurrence. How people react to stressful situation can influence how they respond to stress of illness, because every illness is stressful, no one likes to be ill. So, how they deal with that stress of illnesses also will influence whether they are recovering or not, because too much of stress again will influence their health negatively. So, if they are able to manage and cope with the stress in a better way, they are more likely to recover faster. So, certain traits could be associated with recovery and the risk of recurrence of illnesses, or reduce the risk of recovery, recurrence of illnesses. So, in summary, so there can be varieties of ways in which personality can link to illnesses. So, like directly causing or direct or indirectly influencing behaviors, and in many other ways also. So, it can also influence your recovery process, it can influence or promotes behaviors which are good for health and so on. In so many ways it can influence. So, just to summarize, this is the diagram which shows how it can personality trait is linked to physical illnesses in so many possible in between factors that can link to physical illnesses. So, personality trait can promote recovery and the risk of recurrence of illnesses. So, personality trait can promote recovery, which we have discussed. So, that can reduce the risk of illness, personality traits can directly influence biological factors and directly cause illnesses or reduce illnesses, like too much of stress can lead to release of cortisol hormones, which can promote certain diseases like heart diseases and so on. Personality traits can influence health promoting behaviors. Some trait can promote behaviors which are good for preventing health diseases and so on, like seeking regular medical checkups and so on. People high in conscientiousness generally engage with more health promoting behaviors. So, it will reduce the risk of illnesses. Personality traits can lead to certain behavioral risk factor, like some traits, people with certain traits are more likely to smoke and drink and so on, like neuroticism, extroversion, and can cause illnesses and so on. So, these are all possible mechanisms that we discussed. Now, personality traits can also sometimes let us look little bit more detail about how it is linked to unhealthy behaviors and why it is linked. Some of the more specific things that we will be looking into it here. So, association between personality traits and unhealthy behaviors is mainly linked to two reasons why this happens. Mostly the people with difficulties in emotional regulation may turn to substances like cigarettes, alcohols and drugs, as well as unhealthy foods to alter their physiologically based moods. So, many people, how it is linked to personality is that many people with certain traits, like they are emotionally in the sense not able to regulate their emotions, or they are overwhelmed by emotions, they are not able to cope with the emotions, which could be linked to, let us say, some of the traits related to neuroticism and other things. Such people are more likely to look for certain substances like cigarettes, alcohols and drugs. And they may also take a lot of unhealthy foods, and many times these kind of substances could change their biologically based mood. They may feel good for some time, so they are more likely to just to change the physiological tone or mood of their system. They can get into those kind of behaviors, because it gives them a sense of good positive mood for sometimes, and they are more likely to get into those things. So, they just want to attain physiologically based mood, they want to change it. So, they are more likely to get into those things. For instance, those who frequently feel sluggish might seek stimulating substance. Some people by personality, they feel biologically more sluggish. So, they will take more substances which makes them more active. They are more feel more excited. So, they may get into certain kind of drugs, or some people feel lot of nervousness, like neurotic people may prefer some drugs which are tranquilizing, reduces the anxiety. So, both reason could get them into substances and so on. So, sometimes these traits and characteristics, physiological characteristics and mental characteristics could lead to certain unhealthy behaviors. And the reason is because they are seeking out certain changing of those moods with certain substances. Another important reason is the social factor also promotes unhealthy behaviors, factors in the society. For example, somebody who is very alienated or rebellious teenager might join a peer group or gang that uses drugs or engages in risky behaviors like riding fast motorcycles and so on. So, what kind of environment somebody is put into, that can also influence their behavior. So, social factors plays very important role. If someone is especially in the teenage group where people have not much self-regulatory behaviors, they may, if they find a peer group or a gang who uses drugs and engage in risky behaviors, or especially if that teenager is alienated or lonely and not getting the right kind of support system, or rebellious kind of teenager, or not listening to whoever, then that can also be, sometimes support system is there, but the person is not listening. So, some people are rebellious in their nature or alienated in nature. So, they are more likely to, if they get that kind of peer group, they are more likely to get into those kind of behaviors where they use drugs and risky behaviors. So, social factors can contribute. Or if the same teenager found let us say purpose in some other peer groups who are engaged in productive environmental activities, or some religious peer groups or environmental political movement, whatever it is, their behaviors may be directed in the positive directions. So, sometimes what kind of factors, social factors they find themselves in can also lead to certain kind of behaviors, which may be problematic in certain cases. Personality trait of conscientiousness is a very strong and reliable predictor of health and longevity. So, research shows that this one particular trait, conscientiousness, is a very strong reliable predictor of health, particularly because it promotes lot of positive characteristics or health promoting behaviors, and it promotes health as well as longevity, or to what extent people live, so that is also predicted by that. So, we will be looking at this particular dimensions little bit more detail, because lot of research shows this has very important health promoting characteristics, and lack of this lead to health destructive behaviors. So, many unhealthy behaviors that elevate the risk of medical problems are triggered by stress, which is particularly problematic for impulsive or emotionally unstable individual. So, especially people who have a trait of emotional instability, like neurotic people, or people who are very impulsive, because that is their personality trait, they are particularly more in the risk of medical problems, because they are more likely to experience stress, which we discussed, and it may enhance the medical problems and so on. So, stressed individual often eat more and gain excessive weight, which may be a lot of biological reasons for it, stimulated by hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So, basically it is a stress response axis, which leads to release of hormones such as cortisol. Obesity, chronic stress and chronic inflammations are linked to various diseases. So, certain personality traits are more vulnerable for such diseases, because they are more likely to experience stress in their life because of the trait, and stress could have all these implications. So, these are some of the possible reasons and connections between personality and illnesses. Now, let us look at conscientiousness as a trait, which in certain cases we discussed earlier also in this lecture, that it has been found to be very important in the context of health. So, lot of research actually found a very strong relationship or consistent relationship between conscientiousness and health promoting behaviors, or positive impact of this trait on health is kind of well established. So, conscientious individuals is associated with both longer and higher quality life outcomes. This connection is not due to direct biological link, but rather to the health promoting behaviors of conscientious individuals. So, conscientious individuals mainly has a lot of positive impact on the health because of the behavior pattern they show. So, the research has consistently shown that conscientious people live longer and have better health outcomes. So, this is kind of a general finding. One of the meta-analysis, which is done on a large sample of more than 76,000 participants, found that conscientiousness was the only personality trait which reliably predicts survival. Individuals low in conscientiousness often have poor self-control, lack persistence and engage in behaviors detriment to health. So, conscientious individuals have very strong sense of self-control, the persistence, and then very kind of well regulated behavior, and because of this trait they are more likely to engage in health promoting behaviors. They have a more sense of consciousness in terms of what they do, and because of that they are more likely to engage in positive behaviors and live longer and have better health. People high in conscientiousness tend to avoid unhealthy behaviors and maintain healthy lifestyles. So, these are some of the findings. For instance, an internet survey with 4,60,000 respondents revealed that those lower in conscientiousness report poorer health, high body mass index and greater substance abuse. So, people low in conscientiousness show more substance abuse, poorer health and so on. Some research also shows that conscientiousness is also linked to employment, conscientious individuals are more likely to remain employed and avoid job loss, which contribute to positive to health, because unemployment is very stressful, can lead to many deteriorate one's health and have a negative impact on the health also. Unemployment, which is conversely is linked to health issues such as poor nutrition, lack of health care and stress, which can contribute to many physical diseases. Conscientiousness therefore indirectly benefits health through association with stable employment and so on. So, such people are more likely to get employed and kind of remain in that employment because of their more organized behavior, more conscious behavior and so on. So, this is one trait which has been consistently found, conscientiousness which has a positive impact on health. Another personality trait which have been linked to particularly cardiovascular diseases or heart diseases is type A and type B personality. Now, these two types were basically described by two persons named Friedman and Rosenman in 1974. They themselves were heart surgeons or basically heart doctors, who suggested that people with certain personality traits are more predisposed to suffer from stress than others. Consequently, they are more likely to have coronary heart disease. They observe in their patient certain pattern, that certain patients, because of certain characteristics, they are more likely to experience stress in their life, and as a result such patients are actually more likely to experience heart diseases. So, they have identified two types of traits in that context. One is type A and another is type B people. So, they ask question like they developed a questionnaire to identify who is type A and who is type B. For that they ask question like, do you feel guilty if you use spare time to relax? Do you need to win in order to enjoy the games and sports? Do you generally move, walk and eat rapidly? Do you often try to do more than one thing at a time? So, these are some of the questions they asked, which they observe in the patients, and based on that you can see most of this question is, if you say yes to this question, you are more likely to be one type of people. If you say no to these questions, you are more likely to be another type. So, mostly people who said yes to this type of questions, so there are many more questions, were actually A type individuals. So, who is type A individuals? So, type A individuals show certain characteristics. These are like excessive competitiveness and achievement orientation leading to extreme self criticism. Type A, one of the characteristics of type A individual is that they show excessive competitiveness and achievement orientation, too much of competition and want to achieve a lot. So, kind of lead to extreme self criticism, they always want to kind of succeed and competitive nature and those kind of thing. So, naturally they are more self critical, they always criticize little failure here and there and so on. So, this is one characteristic. Second is they have an exaggerated sense of time urgency leading to a constant struggle against time and compulsion to try to do more than one thing at a time. All the time doing lot of things, multitasking, doing more than one thing at a time. So, they always have a time urgency situation and constant struggle against clock, and they have a compulsion to do more than one thing at a time. So, that is also another characteristics. Third is these people have anger and hostility issue that may or may not be openly expressed. So, they have lot of anger and hostility within themselves. Some of them may express it lot, but some may not even express, but it is there inside themselves. So, these are the three important characteristics of type A individual. On the other hand, type B are people who are just opposite to the type A. So, that means they are very easygoing, not very competitive, not very achievement orientation. They are much less demanding on self and others with no exaggerated sense of time urgency. So, they are more of a relaxed kind of individuals. Okay. So, obviously, these are two extreme people may be in between them also. People, because these are dimensional concept, people may come into all ranges of these characteristics. Some people may be extreme type A, extreme type B. Some people may be somewhere in between also. So, they identified these two types of individuals. So, research often mention this type A and type B personalities. These are not like extreme typical categories all the time, either you are type A, type B, not necessary. So, this is more like a dimensional characteristics. more of a people may show certain exist on a spectrum of extreme, you know. So, you can have all kinds of range of behaviors falling from one extreme to another extremes. So, type A and B follows these patterns of spectrum where many people may not fit exactly on type A and type B, but some people may be exactly type A, type B, some people may be somewhere in between them. So, Friedman and Rosenman conducted a longitudinal study over a period of 8.5 years with sample of 3,524 men and aged 39 to 59 years. So, these are mostly their patients, and so they did a very long term study and they tried to observe the characteristics of these people and how, what kind of diseases they kind of report in terms of heart diseases and so on. So, they could kind of they were observing these people, set of people for more than 8 years of time and looking at what is happening in their health status and so on. So, among these people obviously they found some people are type A, some people are type B, and they found after this longitudinal study of 8 years that type A individuals were twice as likely to develop coronary heart disease than type B individuals because of their higher physiological reactivity of type A people show. So, they found in their study type A individuals are twice more likely than type B individuals to experience heart diseases. So, that is what they found, mainly because type A individuals, because of their lifestyle, because of their thinking, their trait, they are more likely to experience stress in their life, and this stress contributes to heart diseases because of it directly influences their physiology and causes problems in the heart. So, this is another trait that was found to be connected to certain disease. So, people who are type A, but obviously later research shows that not everything of the type A is linked to heart disease, but particularly anger and hostility, the third element of type A, is more specifically linked to heart diseases. Other two aspects of competitiveness and achievement orientation and time urgency, they were not directly linked to heart diseases, but anger and hostility later research shows were more important or more contributing to heart diseases. So, researcher defined the trait of hostility as a tendency to react disagreeably to disappointments, frustrations and inconvenience. So, people show a lot of frustrations and a little bit of any kind of disagreement, and they feel a lot of disappointment, frustrations and inconveniences. So, that is something that is reflected in the trait of hostility or aggression. So, people high in hostility, not necessarily they always are violent or aggressive people or assertive or very demanding people, that is not necessarily. People high in hostility in this context basically means they are likely to become easily irritated by small frustrations such as vending machine taking their money without dispensing a drink, misplacing car keys and so on. So, basically these are the people who get frustrated very easily, irritated very easily, may not be all the time very violent and aggressive kind of individuals. So, that is the trait they found later research shows is more strongly related to heart diseases. So, several studies have established that hostility is a very strong predictor of cardiovascular diseases. Many meta-analysis of studies shows, for example, in 2009 one meta-analysis shows that this component is much more strong predictor of cardiovascular disease. Even some psychologists like Dombrowski and Costa found that even a questionnaire measure of type A, particularly the hostility component of the type A, predicts heart diseases better than the other measures of type A personality. Recent studies also linked hostility to systematic inflammation indicated by elevated white blood cell counts. Chronic inflammation is known to increase the risk of coronary diseases, leading to physicians to recommend other kind of disease. So, recent researches also shows this trait of hostility in type A is more particularly linked to heart diseases. So, other aspect may not be very strong predictor. So, the positive aspect from this research is that is not everything. So, type A itself is not a bad thing, not everything of the type A is bad for heart diseases. Hostility is primary harmful component, and it is possible that if type A people reduce this hostility component, then it may not contribute to heart diseases. A healthy type A could be, striving for success and achievement is acceptable, but it should not be done with hostility and aggression. So, this hostility and aggression is something that should be avoided. So, being in a hurry and trying to accomplish a lot is fine, but frustration and anger should be avoided when faced with challenges. Enjoying competition is also healthy, provided it remains friendly and non-hostile. So, that sense of hostility is the main culprit according to a lot of recent researches. Some researchers also suggest some therapeutic practices can also be done to reduce this aspect, particularly people who are type A individuals, like practicing more patience and so on. Certain management, hostility management therapies are also there, which can also be taken by people. So, not everything of the type A is bad, but this hostility component has to be looked at, particularly reduced in order to increase cardiovascular health. So, how these arteries are damaged by hostile type of behavior? So, hostility, how it is linked to heart diseases, how it contributes to heart diseases. Now, type A behavior, particularly hostility aspect of it, produces toxic effect on heart and arteries by triggering fight or flight response, because too much of frustration and irritation, all these things triggers fight and flight response in the physiology of the body. So, heartbeat increases and so on. Certain stress hormones gets released in the blood and so on. So, this response include increase, so immediately blood pressure increases, constriction of the arteries, elevated heart rate, greater volume of blood pumped in each heartbeat. As a result, more blood is forced through smaller arteries, causing wear and tear on the inner lining of the arteries, leading to the microcosmic tear and abrasions. So, these abrasions becomes sites where cholesterol and fat can accumulate. So, basically too much of wear and tear happens when there is too much of fight and flight response in the system because of this particular trait, which can lead to basically one experiences more stress because of this trait, and release of certain stress hormones leads to accumulation of these fatty substances in the arteries, and which kind of blocks the arteries and leads to heart diseases and so on. Additionally, the stress hormones released during fight and flight response can further damage arteries. So, one thing is too much of erratic beating of the heart because of too much of stress could cause problems in the heart, and on the other hand, the release of stress hormones, particularly when it is released for very long time, leads to release of certain hormones like cortisol, and it has been found cortisol as a hormone promotes deposit of fatty substance or cholesterols in the arteries of the heart, which basically blocks the heart, and that is what heart disease is all about. So, this build ups promotes build up of fatty deposits. This build up of narrow arteries condition is called atherosclerosis, which is the main reason for heart diseases, which hardens or blocks the heart arteries. When the arteries supplying blood to the heart muscles become blocked, so the blood flow is restricted because of the blockage of the arteries, and which causes heart problems and heart attacks and so on, because of the insufficient supply of the blood in the heart. So, this trait could contribute to all this through directly physiological mechanisms. So, this is just a diagram that shows how this plaque, this is a healthy artery, and this is where certain deposit is happening, which is blocking the pathways. So, blood is not freely moving to the heart. So, when it is blocked, blood pressure also increases, because it is not able to move smoothly. So, it is blood has to put more pressure in terms of going or flow through the arteries. So, that enhances the blood pressure also. So, this could be the possible mechanism through which certain trait like type A trait, particularly hostility, could contribute to heart diseases. So, with this I stop here. In the next class we will be talking about how personality is linked to mental health and so on. With this I stop here. Thank you.